Good morning. Hi and welcome to another RiderCamTV video. And today we've left Santiago de Compostela and we're heading into Portugal to Vizela for our next overnight stay through national parks, beautiful roads, amazing twisty bends, beautiful tarmac. And I thought while I'm riding along I'd have a talk about the speed limits in Spain. And I find, you know, Spain is beautiful to ride in and not knocking it at all, but the one thing that I find quite frustrating is the speed limits. Now, the speed limits everywhere, absolutely everywhere, and the normal speed on an open road that's not dual carriageway or motorway is 90k, and then they've got a whole host of different speeds, same as any other country: 80k, 70k, 60k, 50k, 40k, 30k, 10k. But the thing that I find really frustrating about riding in Spain is the amount of changes of speed. So there are a few places that have got 90 and 100, 110, you know, that sort of speed limit. But no sooner you get up to speed, there's another speed limit, very often on a corner, telling you to slow down, go to another speed, and then there's blue signposts with speed limits on there, and that's kind of advisory speed limits, which is great. Like this one up here, we've got a recommended 60 speed limit up here. And invariably, you know, on a motorbike you can go around a little bit quicker, but they are advisory, same as we get in the UK. But the frustrating thing for me is that you get to a 90k, and it might be 90k and then literally straight down to 70k, then 50k. I do like the fact that when you go into towns and villages, the speed drops down to 50. Almost automatically, really. And then you get a speed limit sign with the crossing, almost like our national speed limit sign that comes at the end of the restriction, and you're back up to whatever speed you were doing before. But sometimes there's so many speed signs that it's really confusing, and then you look down at your sat nav and that's saying something completely different than you thought. So I tend to try and go obviously by what I see on the road as opposed to the sat nav, because I think if you follow the sat nav's speed limits you can come unstuck, especially if you're pulled over by the police. But it is really frustrating that you're going into one place doing 90 and it's just beautiful road in front of you, and then all of a sudden it's 80 and then 70. And over most junctions and things they bring the speed down, which I think is a really good thing, to bring the speed down when you're going past a junction, so that there's, you know, if there is an accident there's less of an impact because the speed's been reduced. But it's really quite frustrating when you're riding along and you can see the road is just beautifully clear, there's no obstructions at all, and then suddenly there'll be a random speed limit knocking you right down in speed. And there's a few quirks in Spain, like the solid white line. There you go, look, a 50k speed limit right on the corner. So unlike England, where you get a 300, 200 and a 100 warning that the speed limit's going to change, where it's on a dodgy place that you can't see the speed limit, in Spain they just put them anywhere. So like that one we've just gone through, it's literally on a corner, and if you're doing 90 because that's the speed limit of the road and you're on a bike and there's police there, then the first thing you're going to do is put your front brake on and stuff, and then the bike's going to sit upright, it's going to get messy. But it's really difficult sometimes to keep within the speed limit, purely because the speed limit signs are right on the edge. So now we've got a 70 there crossed out, look down at the sat nav and it's saying 90, which is quite confusing. So is this a 90 road or is it a 70 road? Now I didn't see a 70 sign saying that it's 70, and I would presume, going by logic, that that sign means that this road is a 70k road, but I'm not 100% sure because I can't remember seeing a 70k speed limit, although it would make sense because we're going downhill. And they're quite tight bends, so it would make sense that it's a 70. Now things like the stop signs, you have to stop at the stop signs, and there's a big debate, there always has been in England, especially on a bike, that at a stop sign, do you put your foot down or do you control the bike and come to a stop? Well, in the highway code I think it says that the bike must come to a full stop, but the only way that you can kind of demonstrate that the bike has come to a full stop is by putting your foot down and stopping on the floor. In Spain, if you don't do that and you get seen, regardless whether the bike has stopped, you'll get a ticket, on the spot fine. And the line's in the middle of the road, so obviously the same as the lines that we have in England. A single white line means that you can't overtake, double white line means that you can't overtake. That's a continuous line, that is. But in Spain they have breaks in the lines. So if there is breaks in the lines, then you're able to cross the line to overtake. Now on dual carriageways and things like that, you've got lane 1 and lane 2, and you get a feeder lane or an on-ramp onto the dual carriageway or motorway, and you'll see like a really like a solid white line. So if you're in lane 2, that solid white line is accompanied by a dotted white line on your side, so you can cross it to get into lane 2 to allow people out from the slit road, but you can't then cross it to come back into lane 1. You have to wait till that junction's been cleared, and I think that's really quite a good idea, because that kind of instills a little bit of safety, that you're not going to get people coming back into that lane 1 when people are potentially wanting to join. And we all know what it's like on a motorway and dual carriageway in England, that people seem to have forgotten the fact that it's a give way and there is no right to just pull out, but they do, and that puts the person in lane 1 in a difficult position, especially if there's nowhere to go. So little things like that make sense. And here you've got like broken lines in the middle of the road. Now if you were to turn left over a solid white line, you will, and you get seen by a police officer, you will get an instant on the spot fine. And those broken lines are so that you can cross that line and take your left turn, which I think is a good idea as well, because it kind of gives people a prescriptive place that they can cross, as opposed to making them cross or allowing them to cross everywhere and seeing that lane discipline goes to pot everywhere. And then you get things like this hill. You know, we get lots of these in England. It's not dual carriageway in England, because dual carriageway in England is dictated by a central reservation or a central barrier of some sort, be it grass or a proper barrier or whatever it is, but it must have something designated the centre. But we have lots of these in the UK, and you get a thicker dashed or dotted white line on the left hand side of my bike as we're riding. And that just means that there's 2 lanes going up, and obviously they're both still the same speed. There is no fast lane and slow lane, same as there isn't in England, but it enables you to overtake something that's going a little bit slower than you, and then you come back in. And what I do like about riding in Spain is that they enforce where it's a stop and where it's a give way. So if you think about motorways, dual carriageways in England, it's just a dotted line, and people are expected to know what's in the highway code. And I'm sure a lot of readers will agree with me that it seems to be that not an awful lot of people have actually read the highway code at all, because they do whatever the hell they like. But here we've got a give way sign, so I know that this lane is coming to the end and it's a give way, so I've got a reminder on the road that it is a give way, and I've not got the right to just pull out in front of someone. And I think that's a really, really good idea, to have those things. Now once you get used to the markings like that one there, if you're turning left out of that junction to go this way, it's not just come straight out onto the road. You go into the middle, and then you've got another give way where you indicate right to join the traffic in the way that you want to go. A lot of those things make so much more sense. I don't know whether it's because it's a lot more prescriptive in terms of how you should be driving and riding, and where you should be riding and driving, and what you should be doing. But the one real thing that's so annoying is the amount of changes in speed limits. And I'm not saying past junctions and things, because I think that's a good idea, but the amount of changes in speed limits that are seemingly for no reason, and the amount of changes that leave you a little bit confused as to what speed limit you should actually be doing, because very often you've got a sign saying how fast the road is, and then you've got another one saying slow down for that junction. So now this is the end of 70, but does this go back to 80, which was one of the signs further back, or does it go back to 90? Or like the sat-nav saying, does it go to 100, which was the sign way back? That's the confusing bit, and I think especially for people from other European countries that visit Spain, especially English people that visit Spain, that's one of the real confusions about what is the speed limit on the road. And sometimes, I've got to admit, sometimes you're kind of taking luck into your own hands at guessing which speed limit it is, and you've got to really pay attention. It's really difficult to pay attention all the time and get all the signs, because there's a sign saying on the slip road on the right it's 40, but you know it's a 90, and then there's a 50, and then it goes 70 with a cross through. Does that mean it goes back to 90? It's really confusing, really confusing. But all the prescriptive things, like you get the corner markers and things like this, where you get no overtaking, and you get overtaking. I find that the Spanish road system is much more prescriptive about what you can and what you can't do, and where you can and when you can do those things as well, rather than England, where it's kind of quite straightforward. I think you've got to kind of pay a lot more attention on the Spanish roads as to what's going on, especially if you want to avoid fines and things, but also like the myriad of signs here, like no overtaking replaced by a newer no overtaking sign, and then a bend, and then a junction, then a 70, then another no overtaking sign, but there hasn't been a sign saying you can overtake. So why would they put a sign in there then saying you can't overtake right next to one that says you can't overtake? I just find it a little bit bizarre and very confusing at times. But all that aside, don't let that put you off, because Spain is one of the most beautiful countries to come and visit, and Portugal, where we're off to today, it's one of the most amazing places to visit. The people are so friendly, things are really cheap. You're talking for an espresso coffee €1.20, less in a lot of places. A sandwich €2, probably a lot less in some places. And the people are just really nice. They're welcoming, and if you try and speak Spanish, or at least try with, thank you and please and good morning and good afternoon and goodbye and thank you, all that sort of stuff, they really do try. And they speak a lot of English, they really do speak a lot of English, but I always like to try and speak some Spanish, because I think when you're in somebody else's country, you should try and speak their language and fit in with the culture and enjoy that sort of thing, rather than going to another country and just eating burger and chips every day. You want to try different things and experience different experiences and cultures. But Spain, I couldn't recommend Spain enough. I do all the Spanish trips with Magellan purely because I adore this country. Absolutely adore it. The scenery's to die for, the roads are, and the people, they're just amazing, and you can do it on quite a good budget. Really can. And now we're at our first coffee stop, which is lovely, and they do amazing sandwiches here. So while we pop into our little cafe for coffee and a beautiful sandwich to take with us to eat on the crossing to Portugal, if you like the video, give us a massive thumbs up, it really does help. Click that subscribe button when it pops up on the screen, and we will see you in the very next video. Ciao for now!